All right, I'd like to entertain a motion so that we may go out of the closed meeting we were in. I move that we go out of the closed meeting we were in, seconded by Councillor Zant. All those in favor? Carried then, that's fine. Announcements. Let's go to let's talk about what was discussed at the closed meeting. Yes, there were some directives that were handed out. There was a resolution to be considered at the budgetary talks tomorrow, and there's a directive handed down for a new hire. Go ahead, Councillor Zant. That's in relation to the Chief Information Officer. Yes, be it resolved that Town Council accepts to hire Michel Cuisineau as Chief Information Officer on a full-time basis, in effect as of the 19th of February 2019, and that he'd be subjected to a probationary period for 6 months, and be it resolved also that his salary be pegged at Class 8 in between Level 3 and 4 of the salary grid that is implemented for non-unionized employees, as recommended. Seconded by Mr. Kennelly. All those in favor? Carried then. Let's go on. Announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? Well, there was the Saint Pascal de Bayon Carnival that was held last weekend. Nothing else to mention? Fine. Let's go on now to question period. If anyone has any questions of council, step up to the mic and give your name and address. None? Fine then. Let's go on to members' items. Mr. Bouchard. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Whereas non-residential tax revenues are only 5.8.7%, and that the Clarence and Rockland economic development has slowed down considerably these past few years, and because the city has no economical development plans, and whereas an economical development committee would allow to elaborate recommendations to stimulate economic growth here in Clarence and Rockland, be it resolved that the City of Clarence and Rockland set up an advisory committee with regards to economic matters for the City of Clarence and Rockland, and be it resolved also that the administration be mandated to work with a work group made up of a maximum of 3 members of Town Council nominated by the Mayor to set out reference terms to establish an advisory committee to stimulate economical development here at Clarence and Rockland for the benefit and consideration of Town Council. Seconded by Councillor Chouanière. That's fine then. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Folks, do you speak French? Fine, because I just want to make sure. I believe that you're here for one particular item. All right. Consent items. Are there any items that you wish to withdraw? None? Mr. Levert, go ahead. Well, Mr. Mayor. Don't read it out too fast. It's a lengthy one, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the following items as identified under consent items appearing on the agenda of the regular meeting of Town Council on the 21st of January be adopted. 10.1, adoption of the minutes of the following meetings. Regular meeting of December the 17th, 2018. Committee of the Whole meeting of December the 17th, 2018. Item 10.2, receipt of the minutes of the following meetings. Committee of Adjustment, October 24th, 2018. Also, the following recommendations from the Committee of the Whole of December the 17th, 2018. A resolution to support the Department of Infrastructure and Planning strategy in regard to the Notre Dame landfill site and Caron Street stormwater management. 10.4 resolution to adopt the salaries paid from December the 2nd, 2018 to December the 29th, 2018 in the gross amount of $834,185.34. And a net amount of $594,399.77. 10.5, a resolution to adopt the accounts paid from December the 8th, 2018 to January the 12th, 2019 in the amount of $2,131,267. 10.6, resolution to adopt the tax reductions under sections 357 and 358 of the Municipal Act. Item 10.7, resolution for the nomination of 9 volunteer firefighters. 10.8, resolution to recognize the 2019 Clarence Creek Carnival as an event of municipal significance. 10.9, resolution to adopt the health and safety policy. 10.10, resolution to adopt the 2019 social media policy. And 10.11, resolution to accept the Clarence and Rockland Pickleball League's request to be recognized as a non-profit organization. Seconded by Councillor Cappelletti. All those in favor? Carried then, thank you. Let's go on there to phase 1 of the wastewater plan. Councillor Zant. Whereas the city has to revamp its policy at the very latest in 2020, and whereas it is necessary to continue on with the ongoing study to identify the impact of growth with regards to key municipal infrastructure, and whereas these particular structures with regards to storm sewer systems and wastewater systems need to be looked into, and whereas there's an important need to proceed to further studies with regards to wastewater management, be it resolved that the dispositions of the supply policies be set aside to resort to Jacob's services up to a maximum of $75,000 to complete phase 1 of the wastewater official plan in keeping with report INF 1 2019-002, and be it resolved that this project be financed through funds that are made available through the wastewater fund. Questions? Do we know why they just changed names like this? Yes. Well, it's a different name, same people. So they're the ones that provided the same expertise as before. All those in favor? Carried then. Let's go on now to an Enbridge pipeline request. Mr. Guillemard, sure, certainly. Council accept the grant of $7,500 from Enbridge Pipelines which was provided towards the purchase of 3 carbon monoxide pulse oximeters, and that Council authorized the fire chief to proceed with the purchase of 3 carbon monoxide pulse oximeters at a total of $9,408 plus HST, and that the balance of the funding for this purchase to be funded from the Fire Department's 2019 operating budget. Seconded by Councillor Joignard. Questions? All those in favor? Carried. That Council authorized the Treasurer to sign the agreement for online payments by credit card. Pavementus, I'll second that. Seconded by Councillor Zant. Mr. Mayor, I hope that all the communities within Prescott Russell have adopted the same. I don't know who thought about this, but I think it's a worthwhile idea. Started this, Mr. Douanier, de Métinoyer, was it the counties or individual municipalities? Well, the counties, there was a request that was made through certain municipalities to individual councils, of course, and we got together and adopted this method. Mr. Bouchard, I'd just like to add also that the Treasurers and Town Administrators Association of Prescott Russell have occasion to meet fairly often, 3 to 4 times per year, and these are similar type of projects that we like to look into and adopt. And it's a very well-known company. Well, there's a $25,000 operational cost that is borne out by us. No, there are no costs attached to this. But the $25,000 is for what? Do we figure that there shall be transactions involved with regards to $25,000 per year? Because this is what it states here. Well, you're talking about contracts, master's estimated yearly billed invoices, $25,000. Well, that would have been that amount would have been arrived at in keeping with the past invoicing uh, processes that we've gone through. This is not an estimate as to how much they'll be paid via credit card use, but how much invoicing we send out on a yearly basis. So there are no costs imposed upon us. Let's say like a 1 point some odd percent user fee. That's right. This is borne out by the supplier, and they pay themselves through through credit cards, 1.4% and 1.5% through debit cards. And that's charged directly to the consumer. That's right. It doesn't cost us one red cent. So the companies are called upon to pay then for this. Yes, 1.5% is paid by the individual that uses the service. This agreement is as beneficial for users as it is for the city of Clarence and Rockland. When we take a look at companies, a merchant that will accept payment through credit cards, often credit cards will merchants will be charged in the vicinity of 5 or 6%. Even residents might use the service. Let's say 2% is an extremely great cost. It's a good cost, very low, below par. Let's go on now to bylaws, Mr. Carandelli. Do we? What I would like to do is to withdraw 12.1, if I may, Mr. Mayor. 12.1. Fine. Are there others that you would like to withdraw for further individual consideration? Yes. So let's withdraw 12.2. Mr. Gagliardelli, let's start off with 12.3 then. Be it resolved that the following municipal bylaws be adopted. 12.3. 2019-03 to authorize the signature of an agreement, rental agreement with the Well-Being Hub, Youngsters East Champlain, Rockland site, 12.4, bylaw 2019-05 to adopt the interim tax levies for the year 2019. Item 12.5, bylaw 2019-08, part lot control for part of lot 1, plan 50M-308, and item 12.6, bylaw 2019-07, zoning bylaw amendment, Jacques Rochon, part of Lot C, concession number 3, and item 12.7, bylaw 2019-08, zoning bylaw amendment, Suzanne and Jean-Marie Godin, 1884 Henri Road, seconded by Councillor Levert. All those in favor? Carried then. Councillor Grimard, 12.1, be it resolved that Town Council adopt bylaw 2019-01, being a bylaw to modify the initial bylaw, to modify the 1262 Alma property from an R1 density to an R2 density to allow a joint tenancy type building. Seconded by Councillor Levert. A question here, just as a matter for discussion here. I have no problem modifying the bylaw. What's happening right now on those streets that are a bit narrower in Rockland, Alma being one of those, is that we're taking lots here that housed single-family lots, and we build semi-detached homes, and that causes a great deal more circulation or traffic in narrow streets. I'm in agreement that we proceed to development, but I'd like that council take a look at those very narrow streets and take a look at the possibility of consulting the residents there and transforming those streets into one-way streets. Alma Street, for example, a lot of students leave the L'Escale High School and there are no sidewalks there, and they travel in both directions. Of course, during the wintertime, this narrow roadway is even narrower, and there might be a potential to not only improve safety, but improve traffic flow in both directions. You know, everybody has to slow down, people hesitate, and sometimes a mistake might occur. There might be a bicycle or involved. Well, the same situation arises with regards to David Street. If a lady, let's say, opens up a car door, that car door or the lady might be sideswiped very easily. Now, I don't know which department should take a look at this. I know, Mr. Mayor, because there are Alma, Notre Dame streets, and other very narrow streets that might be subject to further consultation. We might consult the residents in that particular vicinity that I travel there, and might allow us maybe to convert these streets into one-way streets and maybe build an additional bicycle path along that way also. Yes, of course, indeed. We might proceed to a traffic planning contingencies here. These are things that we're looking at for as further consideration for streets that are considered as, or that might be considered to be transformed into one-way streets. I know we have a transportation expert already working on this. Yes, they'll come up with recommendations for streets that might be converted into one-way streets. We'll be calling public meetings to take a further look at this and obtain further comments from the public at large. So, do we have to wait for the report to be forwarded to us stemming from the official plan? No, we can do so beforehand, actually. We might deal with this through members' resolution? Yes. I know that I have those concerns. Maybe other councillors might have those concerns. Well, that's fine. Let's take it up at the committee of the whole, and maybe the public at large might have other comments. Councillor Bouchard, when we decide to convert an R1 to an R2, is there posting of public consultation? Twice beforehand in my ward, people were subject to this type of situation and they did not receive any notices. Well, they have to be so many feet from the subject property, about 120 meters. But the comment, Mr. Mayor, is that if we're talking about a rental property, for example, or an apartment building being built, it might impact the volume of cars traveling in that particular area. Some individuals have been there, let's say, for 100, 120 years. It might just change the makeup, let's say, of a particular neighborhood at one point in time. When we're talking about semi-detached dwellings here, well, you have to be careful with regards to the situation referring to when where a single-family dwelling or an apartment is involved. Changes can be proceeded with at any time. But when we're proceeding to a modification of zoning provisions or modification of certain properties, then all those living within 120 meters of the impacted area, then, yeah, well, these people are to be contacted, especially when there's a change in density. But when we're talking about, for example, a single family dwelling that wishes to build a an additional apartment in the basement, then that's the considerations are much different. We shall refer to the provisions of the building codes and overseeing all changes that are brought about. Well, or we also take a look at the septic tank systems that are being used in those areas. Well, that falls within the confines of the building code. For example, electrical panels. There are some things to be considered, septic tank provisions if we're dealing with septic tanks, and this is reviewed by our construction department. Yes, and this falls under the municipal services department's guidance. I know that there are some streets that are quite narrow, and we have to consider the fact that we're short. We need more bicycle paths, basically. And if we are to convert those narrow streets into one-way streets, we might consider this. Well, just contact folks in those individual departments. Well, those narrow streets there are have been identified by the department that's involved in looking into this. Mr. Mayor, through the process involved, that's being looked into, of course. if there is a street that will be converted into a one-way street, well, they will pinpoint that street rather easily, come up with a list for our consideration. I recommend we start off that way. If there are some streets that are not appearing on this list that you have knowledge of, let us know. Well, as Mr. Grimard has stated, Alma Powers Street modifications should have been brought about. Changes should have been brought about, especially with those particular streets, Alma and Powers. And I'm sure the study that is ongoing will identify or pinpoint other streets. That's all I had to state. And the advantage also that we have with bicycle paths are quite numerous. Well, I believe that on Caron Street there's not much available space for additional bicycle paths. All those in favor? Carried then. Fine. Thank you, folks. Confirmatory bylaw. Oh, there's. There was also another item, 12.2, I believe, that needed to be withdrawn for further consideration. Be resolved that Council adopt bylaw 2019-02, being a bylaw to modify the 2016-10 zoning bylaw to correct technical anomalies within the initial bylaw. Seconded by Councillor Zant. Any questions? Mrs. Ouellette. Well, the reason why I asked this be withdrawn to be considered individually, if one looks at the report, there's a modification, a change that has been added on that was not properly introduced for further consideration at the Land Planning Committee. Part 1.6 on dealing with penalties, because it's the department's wish to add set fines. We need the exact verbatim wording in the bylaw to be able to proceed with this. Was this done? Well, it's contained in the new bylaw that you've had occasion to adopt tonight. I'd just like to mention this, however, because the bylaw was subject to public hearings. It doesn't change much, but this is just a technical aspect of the issue that needed to be dealt with. Fine. Seconded. Any questions? All those in favor then? Carried. Fine. Let's go on now to confirmatory bylaw. Be it resolved that bylaw 2019-04, being a confirmatory bylaw for the regular meeting of Town Council for the 21st of January 2019, seconded by Councillor Bouchard. All those in favor? So let's wait until 8 o'clock then, shall we? Fine. Well, that's better than a budgetary talk meeting, isn't it? Or budget meeting. Yes, I'm going to have to get used to those shorter meetings. Fine.